at the right time. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. The Honorable Deputy Speaker. Okay. The Honorable Owen Mbaya.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this bill. Honorable Speaker, the Food and Feed Safety Control Coordination Bill is coming at the right time. At the right time. In this country today, what we consume as food and what animals consume as feed, which later on translate to be food to the human beings, is that field, that space is in trouble. One, we have a problem of preservatives. Today, you find meat in supermarkets. And when you find that meat in the supermarket, it looks very fresh all the time. Probably it has stayed there for 4 to 5 days. But you ask, how has this meat been preserved to this level of freshness? And they will tell you they have used certain types of preservatives. Those preservatives translate to poison to human beings and eventually cause diseases. So when we have an office that controls food and feed, then we are bringing to this country the safety of human beings. So, Mr. Speaker, food safety and food safety means a safe country. The safety of this country is not about the armies, it's not about the police, it's not about all those other things. The safety of this country can also be determined by the kind of food and feed that is supplied. So, Honorable Speaker, it's very important that we have this office, this officer that will come into office. But my caution, Honorable Speaker, we have had KEBS in this country, Kenya Bureau of Standards, that has been regulating standards of goods in this country, including food, including water. But how come we always have issues of food that has not been properly standardized in the country? The question of integrity, Honorable Speaker. The question of integrity. When we set up this office, we can set an office, a good office with good objectives and with very nice proposals on it. But if the persons occupying that office are people without integrity, then we are doing zero work. So as we put people into office to oversee food safety and feed safety in this country, Honorable Speaker, integrity should be the overriding principle in ensuring that we are safe with the food that we have in this country. Honorable Speaker, another important factor that must be considered as a tourism destination, this country requires, within the shortest time, the establishment of this office. A lot of tourists and high-end tourists look at what is the food safety in Kenya before they come here. You know, once I went to a hotel in this country, in Malindi, and I realized that the billionaire who had come to that hotel had come with a whole plane load of food because he does not trust the food in this country. So I asked him, how come that all the food that is being prepared in this hotel is imported food? They said, even the tomatoes, even the onions, even everything had been imported. And this billionaire had come with a jet, landed the jet in Malindi Airport, and all food and everything, he had come with everything that needed to be cooked. And he told me, you know, I do not trust the food in this country. And we asked why. You said, you see, there is a lot of integrity issues in this country, so the food that is sneaked or that comes, that we buy from the market may not be very safe. I will name the billionaire later to my friend KKJ, who seems surprised. Because they are worried about food in this country. And the tourism sector in this country is actually losing high-end tourists because they are not very sure about the food safety and food in this country. For example, they will not buy milk from this country. Why? Because they think that animals in this country are fed with feed that is not of good quality, that has been compromised, and therefore they will import milk. They will not buy cooking fat from this country. And if you're a hotelier who deals with international tourists, you will import even cooking fat. You will import milk because the clientele demand that we have safe food, and therefore they will. So for us to boost the tourism sector in this country, we have to have food and feed control that can help this country in terms of tourism. Honorable Speaker, I would like to talk about Kenya being dumping site of food and feed that is of low quality. You see, the processes of importing food and feed in this country has compromised. My children like certain food, noodles, and you go to the market and buy a packet of noodles. And you look at these noodles and the way they are and the process that noodles, you say, is this really safe for my children when they eat these noodles? And you look at it and say, suddenly I wouldn't allow my children to eat these noodles. How does it affect children in future? We have young children now suffering from cancer. You go to the cancer ward here in KNH and you realize there are very many young children that have cancer. And then we are also told that food can be a cause for cancer. Then you ask yourself the question, how did these children get cancer? It's because of the food that we have. How then do we control it? I think this office, Honorable Speaker, will help us to ensure that the feed that our children eat, especially fast food, the fast food that is prepared in these fast food restaurants, sometimes does not meet the threshold of fit for human consumption. Honorable Speaker, as I wind my presentation, I would like to say this. Although a lot of the diseases that we have, the cancers that we have, can easily be traced to food, but not just food, feed, Honorable Speaker. I remember the Honorable Gladys Bosch-Cholet brought a motion on pesticides and I don't know whether she talked about fertilizers, but the pesticides that are used in our farms, where we grow our food, what goes into produce that plant, what goes into produce that tomato, what goes on to produce that potato, what goes on to produce that maize, might not be fit for human consumption, and therefore we end up with food that has elements within it that can cause diseases. Honorable Speaker, it is time that we establish this office, and this office, as the leader of majority has said, is supposed to provide coordination of the public institutions for the control of food and feed safety. And that is very important because it needs to coordinate KEBS, it needs to coordinate this standards organization, it needs to coordinate public health, it needs to coordinate a lot. It is very important. Public health officers today, depending on how much money they are given, can satisfy an animal that died of anthrax to find its way into the butchery. Public health officials today, I have seen pictures on social media where donkey meat is finding its way into Kiambu. I saw that story today. And I asked myself, what happened? What happened that donkey meat can find its way into a butchery? Because there's a public health officer who will turn, by virtue of his signature and his stamp, will turn donkey meat into beef. Just that. Why? Because there's no proper coordination. This office, when established, Honorable Speaker, will provide for the coordination of the public institutions for the control of food and feed safety. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, the office will provide for the role of county governments in food and feed safety. Now, Honorable Speaker, I believe in devolution. But sometimes what goes on in county government, you see, they hire a public health officer, not based on qualifications, high standards of qualification, but they will hire that public health officer based on who knows who. On that basis, that public officer can kill our whole community. We had very recently schools, 2 schools where children died because of food poisoning. I can bet a public health officer must have certified that food in that school as fit for human consumption. And yet we lost lives. We lost lives, Honorable Speaker. So, Honorable Speaker, what I would like to say that this bill is very important. I urge members of Parliament to have a bipartisan approach. We pass this bill to ensure that our children, our people, Kenyans, are not harmed, not because of hunger, but because of the food that they eat. That people die, not because of disease, but because of the food that they have eaten. Honorable Speaker, I support this bill, and I hope that when it comes to third reading, we will panel beat it and ensure that we give a gift to Kenyans by ensuring we have food.
Very well. The Honorable Caleb Luyai Saboti is in the House. Proceed.